Hello?
Mr. Bernie Torme.
It is he. I managed to get on
How
to
are
you.
you doing?
I'm doing good. I hope you are too, mate.
I am. We got it working. I'm excited.
Yeah.
Oh,
High
boy,
technology.
Oh, boy. Yeah, right?
You
Technology can be so amazing when it works.
Yes, this is true. Yeah.
Oh. So, all right, so the new album, it comes out October 2nd, I think it is?
That's right, yeah.
And it's called Blackheart. And
Blackheart.
you did the whole the Pledge Music campaign for this album, which I think you also did in your last album as well, correct?
I did, yes. I hadn't ever done it until I tried the last album, and it was just great. I mean, it's a great way of communicating, and it's also, for me, it's a great way of actually having an end point, because just like a lot of musicians, I just tend to carry on. It's kind of like,
right.
Oh, the album isn't, completed. I mean, if it's a pledge campaign, you really have to complete, and I love that. I really like it.
And something too that's really cool with like yourself and other people I see that have done this. I mean, the perks that you guys give away, some are just so meaningful and such a personal level for you guys. I mean, it's got to be a great way of bonding and making your fans feel truly a part of the experience.
Yeah, it definitely is. I mean, I suppose I started off playing, professionally in the 70s, and I was a part of all of the punk thing in the UK in 76 and 77. And at that point in time, it was awfully hands-on, It was very much a thing of being close to your audience, and I really enjoy that. It's nice talking to the people, because I mean, at the end of the day, we're all just people. It isn't as if I'm, yeah.
So, but some of the things that you did put out there though were one where people actually get to play along with you for an encore at one of your shows.
That's right, yeah. It can be interesting, that.
Another one was to jam with the band for 30 minutes.
Yeah. Again, it can be interesting.
The one that I really would have been like, yes, this is the one I want to have, was a guitar body that you smashed back in 81.
That's right, yes, yeah. I mean, to be honest, it went almost immediately. I've had it lying around, the various houses I've lived in, really ever since 81. And it was just, to me, it's a broken guitar. And I'm thinking, well, I have absolutely no use at all for it. It is historical, right, but it's just, a broken piece of a guitar. So I thought about it, and, I suppose it hadn't a high enough price on it. It went like literally in days.
Was something like that, though, was it hard to part with at all? I mean, 'cause that's part of your history right there.
Yeah, I mean, yes, in a way. I mean, because I've always had it, and my sons, were saying, "Oh, you have to keep it." I'm kind of saying, "No, it has to go," and the wife is saying, "Yes, it has to go." So it was easy and it was hard.
Now, also doing like these campaigns like that, the one thing I always get nervous of is, do you think, especially when you did it the first time around, do you think to yourself, oh man, nobody's going to pledge?
Absolutely. I had no idea at all. And I really thought, am I doing something very stupid here? Because I hadn't recorded a studio album at that stage, a solo studio album for 15 years, I think.
Oh, wow.
And it was a long time. And, you think, have you any audience out there? Have you fans who are actually interested in a solo album? I had the amount I needed in about 24 hours. I could not believe it. I mean, it was amazing. But having said that, I was expecting not to achieve it genuinely. Wow. So it was a pleasant experience. It was, a warming experience, really.
That's great. Yeah, that's absolutely great. Do you think this is going to be like where the future of music is going?
Well, probably is. I mean, because of the lack of record labels prepared to, invest in anything other than, the Miley Cyruses and,
right.
that area. It's, it's a difficult thing because you can't really blame them. They aren't shifting enough units, and that's what they are, bean counters, So, but for bands and people who are creative, it's important to be able to carry on and record new material. And I mean, it isn't generally that anyone is getting rich out of it. It's just, it's a great thing, to be able to carry on doing the thing you do. I mean, I'm 63. If I had turned around at 18 and said, at 63, I'll be carrying on recording albums and making new music, I would have said, you're joking. That's not going to happen, man. It has happened. That's pretty cool.
Now, also, too, like you had mentioned earlier on about how, being part of the punk movement in the 70s in the UK, how it was very hands-on. And this is also, it's very hands-on, and it's basically you doing it. Do you prefer it that way now all these years later compared to being with a label?
Yes. I mean, I have been on some great labels, being on WEA in the late 80s. But the problem about labels is that they were kind of really notoriously fickle. It depended on your A&R man, and if the A&R man left and you had just recorded an album that cost, say, I don't know, 100,000, 200,000, that you probably honestly could have recorded for 10,000 or 20,000, only they, said you have to go into this studio and you have to have this producer and that is the price. So, it was less of an audience-driven thing at that point in time. It was very much a kind of an A&R man and a politics-driven thing, because almost all of those big labels, the Weas and the Stonies and the EMIs, Capitals, at that point in time, they felt in their heart of hearts they break basically any artist at all. They did not really have a great amount of interest in the artist's talent or creativity. I mean, I am talking about the late 80s here. I think that is something that had changed from, say, the 1960s, where Atlantic signed Zeppelin, and but basically he paid him nothing at all initially. it was, really in the late 80s, the labels had become incredibly arrogant, and they were just selling cans of beans. And the artist who was most agreeable and the malleable artist was the artist who they wanted to have. It wasn't challenging or creative or interesting, I don't think,
Right.
Oh, perhaps I'm complaining about the fact that they didn't sign me.
So, and something else you did with the whole campaign for this album was you did donate. It was 10% of the money raised went to Teenage Cancer Trust.
Yes, yeah. I do that, and because it's important, I think, to support charities, and if the money is in, percent is no great amounts, so I'm, totally behind all of that,
Right. Now, was there any reason why you chose that charity, or?
I know people who were involved in it. I have had relations who've. I have a nephew who had leukemia as a child, and I mean he's cured. He's great now. He's in his late teens, and but it was such a stressy situation for his parents and our whole family, so it is important. I mean, there are thousands of great charities, so if I ever did it again, perhaps a different charity, I don't know really. No.
Gotcha. Well, would you, being that, this album's not out yet, but in the future, if there's going to be another album, would you do this process again with Pledge Music?
Yeah, but I don't think I will do it immediately on the next album, because I think I need a break. The one issue about the Pledge thing for me is, here you are trying to record an album, and you also are marketing the Pledge, and you have to kind of spend, a period of time, I don't know, an hour every day, an hour every 2 days, shouting about it, letting people know, and updating and all of that. And I mean, having all of that thing, it is important and it is enjoyable, but it's also incredibly hard to concentrate on recording if you're doing all that, so it's
it's a whole other job in itself. With the whole
it definitely
world of social
is.
Media and all.
Yeah. And I mean, the problem is, because it is a pledge, it has to be hands-on. It has to be, the guy who they're pledging for has to do it, or the girl, or the band. So it's you can't appoint anyone else, So it really had to be me,
Right. So, all right. So the new album, like we said, is called Blackheart. Was there any particular reason why you called it Blackheart?
To be honest, absolutely not. I was just trying to find a name. It was like, oh God, I've got an album. What am I going to call it? In Dublin, Blackheart is pronounced blackguard. So I thought that's a funny word. It isn't even properly English, so I thought Blackheart's a good name. It's kind of, anyone who's Dubliner will pronounce it a bit different to anyone else on that, so that's a good thing.
It's a real gritty rock and roll album.
Thank you, yeah.
But there was one song that really was standing out to me the more I was listening to the album, and it was a song called Party's Over, because it just seemed like a real sad song.
Yeah, I kind of had it. It came up, and I thought, well, it'd be nice to have a song. It's almost about, aging and the end of tours and the end of albums. So it seemed appropriate. It's just, at the end of the album, I was really enjoying it all. And then, you happen on a point and, it's ending. So it is a song about an ending. And it was also kind of a tiny bit of a corny country pastiche almost of that. Only I'm not, kind of like from Nashville or anything like that. So it kind of came across, the way it came across, it's almost as if it's a blues kind of thing or whatever, Yeah.
Yeah, that's like when I was listening, I was like, wow, I'm like, is he like singing about the end of his career? Is it like almost like a swan song for him, or?
Well, like it kind of is, but I mean, it is. I'm not actually at the end of my career yet, I don't think, so
I hope not.
Kind of prophetic more than anything else.
And you also just put out the video. I guess it's the song "Pain Song" is going to be the first single.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And I have a total hatred of doing mime videos, because over the years I've had to do absolutely hundreds of them, and it just takes so much time. It's so boring, and I thought we'll go in and record a few songs and have two cameras and play them live.
Right.
And we actually have two other tracks too. So I'm going to be putting those out in time. But it was just, because it's immediate and it is actually the band playing,
Right.
It's cool,
Yeah, it is. And it came out really cool too.
Cheers, yeah.
Now,
Thanks, so.
You're going to be doing some touring too, but it's I guess you're just staying in the UK for the time being, or? Yes,
yeah. I mean, we're hoping to do Europe, even the US, if I have, if I'm lucky enough to get out to the US, really. But yeah. Initially, it's UK. Yeah.
When's the last time you've been over to the US?
The last time was when it was late 80s. I was working with Dee Snider on the Desperado album, and but we never toured. The last time I had toured in the US was Ozzy Osbourne in 1982. Yeah, long time ago. Long time ago.
I
changed
had
a bit
totally
since then.
Forgotten. I had totally forgotten about the whole Desperado band that you and Dee had put together until I was like going through the old stuff. I was like, oh my God, I forgot all about that.
Yeah. I mean, from 1987 till 1990. I mean, it was a great band. Clive Burr on drums, but it kind of got caught up in that whole, big record label thing, and it was almost, to keep the price high, you don't play. So Here we are hanging around for 2 years waiting on a deal, and then coming to and then I think it was crazy amount of time, about a year recording an album. I mean, it was just like endless. I'm like, thinking of the period of time I was in. It was 2.5 years to put 3 albums out. The period of albums out. I mean, it was just like how the change, and at the end of it all, the album it was like, oh, thanks. Having spent, I think they spent something absurd, like 400,000, some crazy amount. And they said, we don't like the album. Bye. I mean, no, man, look at it. And, the way labels operated, they deserved Napster. I've got to say it, really. It's just like, the thing that has destroyed them, the way they acted, they were so arrogant and so just ridiculous,
Wow. That's a lot of money to be spent.
That's a huge amount, man. Oh, yeah, just a huge amount, And I mean,
to say you don't like it.
Yeah. I mean, it was like the crazy thing was the guy who's in charge of Elektra. I don't recall his name now. He heard a couple of tracks the week before, and he was going, "Yeah, best thing I've ever heard." And then he had a headache the week afterwards, and he heard the whole album. And he said, "Drop it." I mean, it's just like that was a business, that was an industry. That was pretty crazy, man. And it's a great album, to be honest. It's a great album, It's obviously D is on it. Hey, I don't understand, really,
Do you keep in touch with D at all?
I do, yeah. I mean, not on a weekly basis. We communicate now regularly, sometimes every year, sometimes twice a year, sometimes 3 times a year,
That's cool.
But yeah.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
Did you see, I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago, Paul Stanley called him a wannabe?
Yeah, I heard that. That's awfully brave of Paul Stanley. That's all I can say, because D is gonna,
Now, how about another singer that you used to play with, Phil Lewis? You keep in touch with him at all?
I hear from him occasionally. Spoke to him about 2 years ago. I don't see him often, but we are in like loose touch, yeah.
Right. And going back to it,
he's an old pal, He is an old pal.
Yeah. And going back to with the whole Ozzy and Randy Rhoads thing.
Yeah.
And you were only there for, I think it was not even a week or 10 days or something like that.
Well, no, I was actually out there for probably about 2 weeks. I only did about 8 shows, I think, or 7 or 8. I had, I tried to avoid counting them, to be honest, but it's kind of like it was a strange old experience. I was out there probably for 4 days prior to the first show, because initially they auditioned, I think, 4 players, even though I'd been told in the UK that I automatically had the gig and I wasn't going to be auditioned, but I went out and it was real people who they were auditioning. So then there was a kind of a day, because it was Randy's funeral, which was tragic, just like horrific. But then we did the first show in, I think it was Allentown in Pennsylvania. Yeah. So after that, I think I did about 7 or 8 shows. I mean, perhaps exaggerating there, really. I'm not sure. It was just incredibly difficult, because I hadn't heard any of it until the day before I took the flight out to LA. I knew Sabbath. I hadn't ever heard Randy. So I kind of got, that record. And it was, this is the days of vinyl and cassettes. And I had put it on, and I kind of thought, oh, my God, this is no easy gig, I was just like, it was impossible. I mean, at that point in time, I hadn't any set lists. I went out, and of course, it's a fairly obvious thing in retrospect. No one in the band had a clue what he was playing. Rudy, who was playing bass, was basically playing the lines and root notes, and Don Airy, who knew the chord progressions, but that was about it, and basically Ozzy, who didn't know anything about any of it, really. So I'm out there, and I have, between traveling, I had probably 2 days to try and take it in, and I mean, there was no chance at all. They had a cassette off the desk, and I had it, and I mean, again, the arrangements and what he played live wasn't what was on the records. So it was just, man, it was just impossible. And I mean, also, even though they asked me, because I had a kind of a tremolo arm and he had a tremolo arm, and we both had blonde hair, so they thought, well, I looked, the part. An awful lot taller than them. And I ended up in Rudy's clothes, and I just trying to take it in and trying to remember it. I mean, it was an hour and a half set, so, going on there and just being jet-lagged, exhausted, stressed out, and trying to remember the basic arrangements and the fact that it was a ginormous stage. I mean, there was no communication. The only guy who was able to, say, the next chord is G. Don Airy, who was up at the castle kind of battlements on the other side of the stage, about 100 yards away. So it was just like, man, it was so difficult. And I went out first gig, and I had 2 Marshall double hooper leads at the back in the portcullis in the castle. I couldn't hear a note. I played for the whole show, and it was probably a blessing I couldn't hear it, because I didn't have a clue what I was doing. And I came off and I said, I can't hear myself. All I can hear is Ozzy. I can't hear any drums. I can't hear anything. All I can hear is Ozzy. The crew said to me, Randy had exactly the same problem. And I'm saying, yeah, but he knew the songs. It was a bit, it was a bit easier. So they said to me, well, he had a double stack, an extra double stack on the stage side, pointing across at his left ear. So every other gig I had that, and I could just about hear me. It was just, man, it was crazy, really crazy. It was so difficult.
Wow.
I mean, we were trying to stay in time, because I could hear Ozzy and I could hear Tommy's snare. I wasn't able to hear his bass drum, wasn't able to hear his hi-hat. So on the intro to Suicide Solution, him and I are like kind of playing together, and he's playing hi-hat. I had to turn around and watch his hi-hat up the pyramid, because otherwise I just hadn't any chance at all of even being in time. It was really hard, really hard.
And I mean, to be able to play, I mean, to get the chance to play with people like Rudy and Tommy and Don Airy has to be like, I mean, with the circumstances, yeah, it's pretty crappy, but to be able to have that opportunity to play with them, and then the circumstances you have with the sound and all, you really can't even enjoy it.
Yeah, this is it. Well, I mean, a jam at the rehearsal, at the audition at the beginning. And I really enjoyed that. That was great because I always like to get off on drums and bass, and being able to hear Tommy and Rudy, it was just amazing. And Don's a mate anyway, so I know how great he is. I mean, he's in Purple now, so it was a great band, and it was just standing on the stage with Oz. And never on any stage I've ever stood on felt the amount of love of the audience for a person. They loved Ozzy. Man, they loved him. It was just like, it was incredible. It was almost like a physical wave. It was so strong, amazing.
Wow. How soon, or what was the exact moment that you realized, like, this is not for me?
To be honest, at the beginning, I had an album kind of coming out in Europe, and I had tours, and I hadn't wanted to do it. When I was asked initially, I said, no, I can't, because just like any, guitar player, if you have your own album, it's priority, So, yeah, and I mean, also at that point, even though the Gillan band had been fairly unknown in the US, it was a big act over here and in Europe. So I had an audience over here. So it was. And I mean, in my heart of hearts, I've always been a hippie. It's like I grew up in the 60s, and it was about creativity. And I'm out there kind of like in a band, a great band, playing Randy parts. And I could personally feel close to Randy, and I would feel that Randy was saying to me, don't play my parts, play your own parts. He didn't play other people's parts, he played his own parts, So right. I was a kind of a complete believer in everyone has their own road. I really wanted to help Ozzy out, and Tommy and Rudy and Don. And it was great because if I'd been there at that point in time, I don't think they'd have got back out on the road. I mean, they were all in a state. I mean, especially Ozzy. It was just a thing. Get them out, get them playing. Brad turned up, and I, spoke to Brad, and I said, I'm happy if you're here. You can take over. I don't want to really, in my heart of hearts, be Randy. I don't want to even try because, to start with, I can't. I ain't ever gonna be Randy. He was a special, and he was a one-off, and I don't want to try, because to me that was personally an insult to the guy's memory. Right, if I look at Zach is his own man. I was in at a point in time there was no chance to be that. Taron and Ozzy just wanted it to be Randy too. I wasn't able to do that, spiritually or probably as a player, but I hadn't any interest in trying, I'll just have a hole and leave.
Wow. I remember the first time I had seen a picture of you from, it was the picture you always see with you with the black and the white Strat, and I remember seeing it, and I was like, who's this? This isn't Randy, because Randy never played a Strat.
That's right.
I didn't know the longest time who you were. I was like, wow, like who was this guy and what happened? And a lot of people didn't realize that you were in between after Randy passed and Brad coming in.
I know that, and I mean, to be honest, at the time, I think there was a kind of, paranoia in terms of, very understandable paranoia in terms of Ozzy feeling it was all going to fall apart, and Sharon trying to hold it together, and the record label, Epic, going, ooh, is the band going to disintegrate? So the last thing they wanted to do was, talk about the guitarist who was in there. And, fair enough. I don't think that they ought to have, and it was about trying to have it carry on. I mean, the thing that I found slightly uncomfortable about all of that is that it also didn't seem, to clearly acknowledge Randy had passed away. And that I was really uncomfortable about, not happy about all of that. So it was, it was a space in time, and I kind of came out of it and went, whew, I'm glad that's over. I loved everyone. Everyone was incredibly kind and nice to me. It was like, being in the trenches. Basically, you came out of it and thought, fucking hell, I'm glad I'm
Well, you also, too, you recorded recently, you played guitar on Flying High Again for Randy Rhoads' The Immortals CD.
I did, yeah, I did. I did that because Kelly asked. I was a bit uneasy about it because I wanted it to be the way I played it, But
right.
Everyone appeared happy with that, and I'm glad I did it. It was to me, because it's a great track, and I always enjoyed playing it.
That's great. Were you shocked when they asked you?
Absolutely. Yeah, I wasn't expecting to be asked at all because, almost everyone on it is like a big name. In the US, not a big name. So it was incredibly kind of Kelly, to ask. Really,
awesome.
Yeah, cool. Really cool.
Cool. So, all right, so back to you. October 2nd, big date, Blackheart comes out.
That's right. Yeah. I'm scared even now.
What are you scared of? Or is it just the anticipation of it coming out?
It's anticipation. It's great. I'll be proud of it. It's getting great reactions on it. So, yeah, I'm really pleased about it. It has, I suppose, unlike Flowers and Dirt, it has a lot of tracks on it that I can play live. So that's great. I'll be rocking out with all those tracks. That'll be cool.
Very cool. And then, so the album comes out October 2nd. You're going to be doing a tour for about 3 weeks, I think it was, 2-3 weeks.
Yeah. Yep.
And then what's the plans for the rest of the year?
Well, the tour ends and I'm having a holiday. And in January I'm out again. So going out in January and again in April. So it's all on, I have to keep healthy.
Bernie, this has been great. I want to thank you so much for taking the time out. I've been dying to talk to you for a long time, and this has been an honor.
It's a pleasure. Thanks an awful lot. Really cool.
Absolutely. And before I let you go, if I can just get you to cut an ID for me. This is Bernie Torme, and you're listening to Totally Driven Radio.
Okay, yeah. Ready?
Yep, go for it.
Okay. Hi, this is Bernie Torme, and you're listening to Totally Driven Radio.
Thanks so much, Bern. Take care, and
cheers.
We'll
Thank you, bye. Thank you, man.
Absolutely.
Thank you.